welcome to Disney and Beyond, your one-stop shop for all things Disney and pop culture. Today is a news video, but it's a news video with a bit of a twist, because I'm not only doing a news video, I am combining the news with the Friday feature, because at the moment, the biggest thing out there is Star Wars. This week, we've had some excellent Star Wars film news, but it's also the release of Star Wars Battlefront 2 by the creators DICE and EA. So, without much further ado, I am going to dive right in with some extra special Star Wars news. So, as you all know, I am a huge Star Wars fan. I live and breathe Star Wars. I'm always on the lookout for new stuff. I'm always looking forward to the new films, new games, new books, new comics. Everything I have in this room is basically Star Wars. But yeah, so this week, it's a huge week for Star Wars. The main reason being is a new game that is coming out at the end of the week on Friday, and that is Star Wars Battlefront 2, which is the sequel to the 2015 first-person / third-person shooter Battlefront, made by DICE, who are owned by EA. There's been a lot of talk about Battlefront 2 this week, and I will get to that in a moment. But for those of you who don't know what Battlefront 2 is, it's, as I say, a first-person / third-person shooter. It can be played in either, and it builds upon what DICE created in Battlefront, except this time we have a lot more content, as that was a criticism of the first game. So, what are we getting with Battlefront 2? Well, according to the developers, it's 3 times bigger than the first game. So that includes a lot more heroes, a lot more locations, a lot more weapons, and a lot more vehicles. Now, with that, you get the 3 cinematic eras of Star Wars. So you've got content from the prequel era with the Clone Wars. You've got content from the original trilogy with, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And that is obviously what was in the first game. But you've also got the new sequel era. So you've got the content from Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Now, a big thing that's been added to this game is also the single-player campaign. Now, the single-player campaign is a story that is canon. It is part of the Star Wars mythos and part of the Star Wars universe, and it's going to take roughly 5 to 6 hours to play, depending on difficulty setting and player ability. That's great. Battlefront was heavily criticised for not having a campaign, and Battlefront 2 now has one, and by all accounts, it is very enjoyable. The locations, there are apparently 18 locations in Battlefront 2, which is a big step up from the few that they had in Battlefront. Also, hero-wise, there are 14 heroes at launch. And again, these cover all the eras, so you're going to see the likes of Vader, Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, not Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm carried away there. He may be coming later, but you're going to get Yoda at launch, you're going to get Han Solo, Leia, Kylo Ren, Rey. We're also getting Boba Fett. There's just so many. Chewbacca, Lando, Palpatine, Darth Maul, which is amazing because he's one of my favourite characters. Yeah, just a ton more heroes, and that's mainly because they've opened it up to the other eras of the cinematic universe. So, that's the game in a nutshell. I've played the beta. It's currently available on EA Access. And for those again that don't know, EA Access is basically a paid subscription service which gives you access to the back catalogue of EA games for a monthly fee. A bit like Netflix, but with EA games. And part of that is the access to Battlefront 2. So if you're a PC or Xbox One owner, you can now go and play Battlefront 2. I have played it. I will begin with the positives before I get onto the negatives, because there are some negatives. Despite the great work that DICE have done, there are some issues that are very major and worth talking about. So I will get to those. But let's start with the positives. On a positive note, there are lots of things to commend this game for. Visually, it is absolutely stunning. DICE have done an amazing job at making you feel fully immersed in the Star Wars universe. You see the ships flying around, you see the droid army, you see the clones, and everything is spot on. It looks exactly the way it looks in the films. They've literally taken the models and everything that were used to make the film and put them into the game. It's astounding how accurate the Battlefront 2 locations and character models, and it's just amazing. You cannot fault the cinematic look of the game. And even the single player campaign, it's like watching a film. It is so good, and it's one of the best things about Battlefront 2 is that it is so visually stunning, and its visual fidelity is just top notch. Even the sounds of the guns and the ships and the characters and the droids, it's almost perfect. Almost perfect. Nothing is ever perfect, but it is as close as I think a game is ever going to get to actually putting you inside that world. So DICE deserve full credit for their hard work on that, and you know, as a design, it's almost flawless. It's absolutely fantastic, and it also runs well on the Frostbite. Obviously, the Frostbite engine's been around for a while now. Every game that comes out of the Frostbite engine seems to go up a notch visually. They get more and more stunning the more and more developers use it. Obviously, there are issues with the Frostbite engine with regards to optimization, but so far, Battlefront 2 seems to be fully optimized for the Frostbite engine. Also, on a positive note, the campaign mode and the extra content. There is a ton of things to unlock in Star Wars Battlefront 2. There are, so many heroes. We will get onto heroes in a moment, because there's also a negative with the heroes. But yeah, there's just a ton. There's 4 classes. You've got Assault, Specialist, Heavy, and Officer. Each of those classes can be progressed individually. Bringing with it, each class has got 4 different weapons it can use, as well as a ton of upgrades and a ton of star cards to unlock. But again, I will get to those in a moment. The gunplay in the game is far superior to the previous game. A lot of people have criticised it for not being that different, but in my personal opinion, I think there's a big difference between the gunplay from the previous Battlefront game to now. Guns feel a lot more individual. They don't all feel like a carbon copy of each other. They handle differently. They shoot differently. They have different effects. You've got things like vertical recoil. Some of them have horizontal recoil. That makes a big difference. It still suffers a little bit from the third-person view. It would have been good to see it as a first-person, or at least a first-person only mode, but they have kept the third-person in there. And I think that's partly because the game looks so stunning, and people want to see the character models. They want to see the full screen. So I understand why they've kept the third person, but personally I would like to see it just as a first person game. because you still get people third person corner hiding, whereby they hide behind the corner because it's in third person view. They can still see around that corner, so they basically just corner stalk. They just sit around the corners, wait for them to come around and shoot them, um, which is unfortunate, but that's just part of the game. Also, grenades are slightly overpowered, maybe. I would like to see them take a bit of a hit, bit of a decrease in radius and damage output, because it is a bit grenade spammy, especially in indoor areas. Outside, not so much, but indoors, definitely has a problem with grenades. But anyway, I'm talking about the positives. Um, yeah, the campaign, the story is awesome. I'm not going to give you a story here. I'm not going to have any spoilers in this video, so don't worry about that. Um, I like the story. I like the characters. There was also a tie-in book that gives you a bit more information to the characters. There are plot holes. I mean, it is a game after all, not a film. You do tend to forget when you're playing the campaign that you are playing a game and not watching a film. But there are some plot holes. There are some areas that could have had further development. But on the whole, it's a solid storyline. It's an enjoyable storyline. It certainly feels very different because it's from an Imperial perspective and not what we're used to with a Rebel perspective. So that makes it different straight away. And it's good to get that other perspective. Character development is great in the story mode. And as I say, it takes about 5 to 6 hours depending on player skill. So yeah, on the whole, Battlefront 2, the positives are great, and as I say, I cannot commend DICE high enough for getting the graphic fidelity almost perfect, because you really do feel like you're in a Star Wars world. But like everything with the positives, there are also some negatives, and unfortunately with this one, there are some whopping negatives, which I will get onto now. Okay, so everyone is talking about Star Wars Battlefront 2 mainly for negative reasons. There has been a huge backlash on certain aspects of the new game. And that's partly to do with the fact that Battlefront 2 is no longer a DLC game. It's no longer going to have a season pass. But that takes away a monetization option post-launch for EA and for DICE. They're companies, they have to make money, they've got investors that need, only care in the bottom line. So they have to find other ways of monetizing a game post-launch to continue with their games as a service mode, their kind of business model, if you will. This time around, they've chosen to go for a loot crate system. Now, loot crates are in other games. Overwatch has loot crates. So many other games have loot crates. The trouble is, those loot crates can be bought for real money. Now, that's not a problem if those loot crates only contain cosmetic items or items that aren't going to directly influence gameplay. Unfortunately, DICE haven't gone down that route. They have put in their star cards. Now, the star cards are heavily tied into the progression system. You need a certain level of star cards to unlock certain things, and you get certain levels of star cards by the total accumulation of the levels. Now, there's 4 different levels of star cards. There's common, uncommon, rare, and epic. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you've got 2 uncommon cards and 3 rare cards, you've got 13 level 13 star cards, for example. That's great, but these star cards directly influence the game because they provide you with upgrades. They provide you with buffs. They provide you with things that are going to help you with the game. Now, okay, DICE have put in a lock so that you can't access the best stuff until you grind out the hours, which is fine. You know, progression, you've got to grind out the hours to get access to that stuff. But if you've already got that stuff in place, it's not that hard to level up your character to get to that point where you can use that stuff. I've seen videos where in the first 24 hours of fully powered heroes. I watched a video on YouTube the other day of a fully powered Darth Vader. It was a tank. He lasted the entire round as Darth Vader. So that guy's clearly bought some loot crates. He's clearly paid real money to get credits, to get star cards, to get the fully upgraded heroes. Now, the heroes themselves are also an issue in Star Wars, but that has just been remedied today. At the time I'm filming this video, originally Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, who are the top two characters in Star Wars that everyone wants to be, everyone is going to expect to play as Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker in a Star Wars game. They were locked behind a 60,000 credit barrier. You had to gain 60,000 in-game credits to unlock those characters to play them. That in itself was an issue because a guy on Reddit did the maths and it was going to take 40 hours to unlock one character at 60,000 credits, which is insane. No one wants to grind for 40 hours. It's as if DICE have put this design in to actively encourage you to cut corners by paying real money to buy loot crates. Because not only would you have to unlock that character at 60,000, you've then got to get more loot crates to upgrade that character to make them powerful enough to compete in the game. DICE have since remedied that. They've taken 75% off the credits required to unlock characters. So you can get Iden Versio now for 5,000 credits. You can get Darth Vader now for 15,000 credits. So DICE are listening. DICE are working on this feedback. They are taking it on board, which actually makes a change. They are taking it on board. They are working on the game. It is a new business model for them, so they're still really finding their feet. But this pay-to-win system, although they have watered it down since the beta, it's still very much pay-to-win, and that is a big issue for a lot of gamers. That's going to put a lot of gamers off, and I know for a fact that a lot of people have cancelled pre-orders because of this system. It's a shame, because as I say, the positives are fantastic. It's just there's also these glaring negatives. And this pay-to-win system, it's just not going to work. And if they don't change it, and I think it's too late to change it, it could be a real issue for the launch of the game, and it could hamper the longevity of the game. But only time will tell on that front. Obviously, people will still buy it. It's Star Wars. I've still got my pre-order. It's still coming. In the longevity of the game, I think there's enough Star Wars fans that will just get out their credit card and buy loot crates every now and again, or there will also be those that get out their credit card and pay hundreds of pounds, hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever you want to call it, just because it's Star Wars and people love Star Wars. And yeah, there's a huge Star Wars community that will play this game, regardless of any negative issues. And there have been some absolute howlers of Star Wars games over the years that people are still playing them more and still play today. So, you know, it's not going to affect the game that much in my opinion, but it could do. It has the potential to really damage the game. I mean, the subreddit for DICE got the biggest downvotes in the history of Reddit. Now, Reddit communities can be harsh places. They can be overly critical, overly negative. So to get the most downvotes in its history, in itself is an achievement, but it's not an achievement you want to shout about. But yeah, so essentially, the biggest issue with Battlefront 2 is the loot crate system, the underlying pay to win system, and also the progression system. I think that's got to go a long way in tweaking a lot of these things. And I think eventually they will do. I think eventually they will get to a point where they're comfortable, where they're making money, and the gamers are also happy. In an ideal world, that is what will happen. But only time can tell. Well, that was my take on Battlefront 2. As I say, I'll get more gameplay of it on Friday, so I may come back with a post-game launch review later on. My biggest positives are the content and the design of the game. It's visually stunning and it's enjoyable. It's fun, and at the end of the day, games are there to be fun. Hopefully, once it's got a wide release, the negatives won't impact that fun too much. If you're a decent enough player, I don't think the star cards will be that much of an issue. Dice have reduced the amount of grind involved, so casual players are only going to put sort of 20 to 30 hours into the game will get all the content they desire. So that's a positive in itself. I like the different game modes that they've brought on board. You know, Galactic Assault, which is the big 40-40 2020 game mode, which is objective based, that changes depending on the map and the era that you're playing in, is fantastic. Not so keen on new heroes versus villains, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. Strike, again, is another version of Galactic Assault, but on a much more confined, smaller map. It's objective based, which is always fun, always interesting, and always fresh. I like the different classes of soldier. The assault, the heavy, the officers, and the specialists. I will probably be playing as a specialist a lot because I like sniping. Officer is another one that I'll probably play a lot because they get the infantry turret, and infantry turrets are always fun. There's nothing more satisfying than annoying the hell out of everyone by killing them with an infantry turret. That's always fun. I will be playing this game for hours, which is another reason why this video is both a Friday feature and a news video, because it is obviously, I'm going to be playing the game on Friday most of the day, probably, because I've got it pre-ordered on the PlayStation Store, so as soon as it's available to download, I'll be downloading it, because it's 48 gigabytes long, large, and it will take hours. But aside from games, there was also some other huge Star Wars news this week regarding films, and that was Rian Johnson has signed on to do a brand new trilogy of Star Wars films post Episode 9. So once the Skywalker saga is over with in Episode 9, we are moving on to a whole new trilogy in an area of the Star Wars universe that has never been explored, apparently, according to the press release. This is exciting news for Star Wars fans, because although we've had the standalone films, which obviously Rogue One has been the only one so far, they have been enjoyable. I'm looking forward to the Han Solo film and the Obi-Wan Kenobi film. But to have a whole new trilogy with a whole new host of characters and a whole new storyline is absolutely amazing. And Rian Johnson apparently has done an incredible job on The Last Jedi. It's going to be one of the best Star Wars films ever made, according to critics. So, I am so excited to see what's going to come out with this. We haven't got a lot of information yet, other than that it's going to be in an area of the Star Wars universe that's never been explored before, which in itself is incredibly exciting. My personal opinion and my personal preference would be that it will be in the Old Republic era. The Old Republic has only ever really been explored in comics, which are no longer canon, and only ever been explored in games, which again are no longer canon. So they've brought certain aspects of the Old Republic back, but I think they will want a era where they can use Jedi and Sith, and the Jedi Sith War is probably one of the best areas they could explore. Not only that, but they could also give it one of the most loved characters in Star Wars, and that's Yoda. Yoda's over 1,000 years old. So they have 1,000 years in which they can place Yoda in a story. They're going to want to connect it in some way to the current films. And Yoda would be the best way to do that by going backwards. I don't think it will be set forwards after the new trilogy. I don't think they will place it in a timeline where other films are taking place. I think the only way forward is to go to the Old Republic, and I would love to see that because there will be lightsabers everywhere, and I own 2 lightsabers, so I think you can safely say the lightsaber is my favourite weapon in Star Wars. Yeah, so that is happening along with a TV show. Star Wars is finally getting a TV show. It's going to be based on the Disney streaming service, which is coming in 2018. Obviously, in the UK, we already have a Disney streaming service called Disney Life, but Disney are finally going global with this, and bigger and better. And this TV show is going to be specifically made for that service, along with, obviously, the Star Wars films will come to that service, and other TV content, and specific movies. So, it is an amazing time to be a Star Wars fan. There is so much happening, and there are going to be a ton of announcements down the line, which I will be more than happy to cover on here. But yeah, essentially that is all the Star Wars news that has come out literally in the last few days. Well, that is probably it from me today. I talked about Star Wars Battlefront 2 a lot longer than I thought I would, and a lot longer than I planned to, but it's a game I am very, very excited to see, and a game I am so excited to own and play. I am really, really excited about what's going to happen with the new Star Wars trilogy of films, and I am really, really excited to see what is happening with the Star Wars TV show on the Disney streaming service. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the future of Star Wars. What do you feel about Star Wars Battlefront 2's loot crate system and progression system? Are you excited for the Star Wars films that are coming? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, whack that thumbs up button, as it's much appreciated and really does help me out. Also, if you don't want to miss any more Disney and Beyond content, hit that subscribe button, as again, much appreciated and really does help the channel to grow, which has always been my aim, is to build a community of Disney, pop culture, Star Wars, game lovers, everything. I love everything, and I want to build that into a community. So, like that subscribe button. I'll be back next week with a proper news video and a proper Friday feature. But until next time, to infinity and beyond.